Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. Podcast that talks about human development and psychology to help you maybe figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And today we're talking about successful or optimal aging. And that means different things to different people. Some people think laying around doing nothing is successful. Some people think doing what they always wanted to do that they couldn't do because they had to work, have kids, and whatever. Then you can do that. So it means different things to different people. As far as the one thing, I can't teach you how to do that. It's going to be up to you. We'll get into some of the reasons and hows and things like that. And remember that it is subjective. I had a podcast lesson, a few days ago, and someone, focused on one thing. The thing was, how people can stay active and, keep going in their old age. And then someone made a comment about, oh, you should value, and I'm like, what? I had my WTF face going. And I realized that, okay, that came from an anecdotal story that I told about an older person working at a store. And evidently that was a trigger for them, a sore spot, because they felt the need to comment that, this. And I'm thinking, I don't have that problem. This was just a story I told to illustrate that some people do this. You took it totally out of context and put an emotional spin on it and made it into something else. But I was talking to a friend of mine who is also into psychology and things. They said, people do that. People, got hot spots and sensitive spots, and you might just say something that to you is a joke or in passing, but to them, it's a big honking deal, and, they're going to focus in on that. And you got to remember, that everybody's different, and just because they say something, you're not supposed to put on the WTF face, but... I try to not do that, but sometimes I'm thinking you're missing the forest for the trees. The whole lesson was about this. This was the point, and you focused it on this. You missed the point. But anyway, as far as successful and optimal aging, no one shoe fits all. So let's talk about that. Theorists and researchers define and measure successful or optimal aging. So, they can study it and look at it, but like I say, it's so subjective that it's hard for any one person to say this is what is successful and optimal for you, because everybody's different. You can't do that. Some investigators focus on such criteria as cardiovascular functioning, because a lot of folks, as they get older, the heart doesn't work like it used to. It wears out, it gets clogged, whatever, and you get calcium in the arteries, and so some people think successful aging is taking good care of yourself so that your heart can remain healthy so that you can live to be older. But not everybody thinks that. Cognitive performance. Again, some people think keeping the old noodle going into old age is, optimal living. Because so many people, get dementia, Alzheimer's, and things like that where the memory goes. And so some people, taking your fish oil and, doing your exercise and thing to keep the noodle going, learn something new every day, is optimal. But again, not everybody feels that way. And mental health. Again, I value mental health because it was something I had to look for and to work for. Because, I was raised where that was not something that was considered important, and there were things going on that led to me not having that. So that was something once I got out on my own, I looked for, because I knew that I didn't have it, and what I had learned was not supportive of it. So some people don't think mental health is a thing even. I've heard people say, oh, all them psychologists, head shrinkers, they're crazy. But it's like, well, no, there might be some. But, being a well-adjusted person, and not carrying your baggage, on into your life when you're older, purging that, taking out your garbage. I've been criticized for talking about personal stuff, but my goal is to help other people, because I know it was hard for me to find people, because it's such a hush-hush, secret-y kind of thing. That's why my books are usually called The Secrets of the Closet Monster, because I wasn't keeping secrets anymore. This stuff happened, and, I want to help other people, because I knew that the resources were not there for me, readily available. I had to look for them and find them. And so I'm trying to just make it easier for you guys by being up here doing this. So, I think becoming a mentally healthy person is a good thing, and it will only enrich your life, not, derail it. Some folks think if you get into your mental health, you're going to derail your whole life. It's going to blow your life wide open. Well, in a way, that's true. It's going to blow the BS wide open, so that you can figure out what's real in your brain and in your emotions, and what's stuff that's carryover. So, like I say, I think once everybody turns 18, they should have to go to therapy and get undone to you what was done to you. So, I believe, I'm a big believer in mental health, about which there is a consensus as to desirable outcomes. So, we know the desirable outcome is to go into, old age being a happy, well-adjusted person and live the life that you want to live. Not everybody is capable of doing that for themselves. But, if you are, then I feel like you should try. So, again, optimal aging is a balancing act, just like the whole rest of your life. The spiritual, the mental, the emotional, the physical. It should be your table of life. I did a whole project on that. Your table of life should be balanced by those 4 legs. Because that's what's going to hold you up and hold the bounty that is your life. So, that's a good outcome is going to be, a balanced old age. A strong heart, like I say, most of us want to have a strong heart as we age. A large vocabulary, and some people don't feel that that's important. I think it's good to learn new things every day, study new words. When I was a kid, I got it natural, because when I was a kid, I used to read the dictionary and encyclopedias. For me, that was fun. I enjoyed it. But some people might not. Some people might think, that's who cares about that? That's too much work, or I don't need to know all that, But, for me, it was fun. So, if I tell you, you're, let's see, what's a big word? Your suprachiasmatic nucleus is, out of whack. You might not know what that means, but I do, and, you can Google it if you want to figure it out. Sorry about that. I had to pause. That was my dad calling. He said he didn't need anything from the store today, but I told him he needs to get his hair washed, because my son who goes over there and mows his grass said his hair looked greasy. So when a mechanic says your hair looks greasy, it's time for you to wash your hair. But back to what we're talking about. And some people believe an absence of depression is successful aging, because a lot of older people, they get depressed. They don't want to do anything. They can't do anything. They sit around and they get depressed. And that's a shame. We're kind of going through this with my mother-in-law. They have a whole activity board of all their activities that they're doing that day. But she would rather sit in a room and be sad that she's there, instead of taking advantage of things that she could be doing in her life. Because if she were to do that, then she would be happier, and she wouldn't feel like she was in jail, she says sometimes. I guarantee you, if I end up, first of all, her home is nice. I would be happy to be there. I can't afford her home, but I'll be in a different one if I have to go. But It's nice. And I guarantee you, I would be doing the activities during the day. I'd be having a life. I wouldn't be sitting there. No, that's not me. So, and these things don't necessarily add up to success in living. But again, it's subjective. Each of us are unique, and it means different things to different people, whether you have successful or optimal aging. So again, one size does not fit all. But these are some of the things that, they say, can be considered successful or optimal aging. Other researchers view productivity, what you're doing. Because if you stop doing, a lot of people do get depressed. They sit around, they watch TV all the time, and they're not doing anything. And they get depressed because they feel alone, and that's a shame. A lot of folks, had hobbies before they had to work and things like that, and it's good to take those things back up. Do something with your time other than sit in front of the boob tube, so that you feel like you're accomplishing something in your life. Economic or otherwise, because sometimes you can make money from your hobbies, and you can get back into things that you didn't get to do when you were younger, as an important criteria for a meaningful or healthful life. Because some people feel like if you're not doing, then you're not doing anything meaningful or healthy for yourself. You need to have something for yourself to do. That is for yourself, not, taking care of the family and, all that kind of thing. Something that enriches your life. They feel like that, will keep you going through the years versus not doing anything and just sitting around. I mean, we all know of people who have retired and took to the easy chair and ate the food and got bigger and died. I knew a woman whose father basically did that and ate himself to death, and he knew it was happening, but he wasn't going to stop. And the man died in his 50s. So there are people who that's just what they do, and that's a shame because they leave a family and friends and people who knew them behind. But you have to decide to do something with your life once you stop working. If your work was all you ever had, that's sad. And you need to find something else to put yourself into. Still others look at longevity, which can be a sign of physical and mental health. Some people want to live to be as old as they can be. I joke that I'm going to live to be 120 until God tells me otherwise, because in the Bible it says the years of man are 120. So, that's the goal. That's why I try to eat right and do my exercises, every day, such as they are. It's not enough, I don't think, to really keep me super healthy. But it might keep me going, might keep my heart beating, and my lungs going. Who knows? Might keep me some muscles so I can keep walking as long as I can, because that's one of the things I want to keep doing. I was down in a wheelchair in 2004, and I did not enjoy that. And so I started doing, like I said, the little leg lifts and everything, minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, every day, more until I got back up on my feet. Now, I'm not steady on my feet. I'm wobbly on my feet. I got a bad knee, and my feet hurt, and I got a bad hip, and my back hurts, but I'm doing it. So, to me, that's an important thing. Another approach is to examine subjective experience, how well individuals attain their goals, and how satisfied they are with their lives. So, like I say, it is subjective. Everybody is unique and has their own outlook on things and what's good for them, what would be successful for them or optimal for them. Some people, they don't want to do anything. They want to just travel their whole retirement and do nothing, and if that's what you want to do, that's great. But, if you'd rather do something that you couldn't do when you were younger, then you might want to go for that. Or if you just want to babysit the grandkids. You want to raise the grandkids, take care of the grandkids. I know a lot of folks, that's become their life. It's like the grandkids. It's what it's all about. So again, every person has their own life. Everything is subjective. So you got to find out what it is that's important to you that you want to achieve or do in the last years of your life. One model, for example, emphasizes the degree of control people retain, so control over your life. If you stay more active and mentally active, to head off, the physical debilitation, and the mental, debilitation, you can keep control of your life. Like I said, my dad's still pretty freaking sharp for an 84-year-old man. He's gonna make sure you know it too. And he's still up walking around. He fell, had a thing where he had a walker and everything, and hurts, but he did his little leg lifts in the chair and all that stuff, and he's back up walking around. So taking proactive steps to keep yourself to where you can take care of yourself and be in charge of your life. Because the facts are, if you're not, then other people are going to do that for you. And that's a situation that, my mother-in-law's found herself in now. She was an ignorant person. She was lazy. I mean, I'm sorry if she sees this, but, she never wanted to do anything for herself. She was always asking everybody else to do for her while she sat in her chair and watched. So, you can't be physically healthy if you never did any exercise. It doesn't work that way. And again, if you don't want to know anything, learn anything, then you're not going to be that sharp. And of course, DNA does play a part in that, and that sort of thing also runs on one side of her family, so that, I'm sure, played a part into it. But, now she's found herself where she can't walk. She falls down when she tries to walk. She has advancing dementia. And, she's generally unhappy with her situation, but, again, she's partly to blame for her situation. So, like I say, if you don't use it, you lose it. So, if you want to be in charge of your own self when you get older, you need to keep the noodle going and you need to keep the body going. Now, I know that's not always possible. And if it's not possible, learn to graciously accept that. It's like, I already know if I get to the point, I've already told my kids, if I get to the point where, I can't stand, I'm falling down on the floor all the time, breaking hips and stuff, just tell me it's time to go, and I'll go. And I'll make a life, wherever I am. Because that's just the type of person I am. It doesn't matter where you put me. I'm going to bloom somewhere. I'm going to grow. I'm not going to be all sad and depressed and, upset about it. I'm going to have my life, no matter what it is, it's going to be my life, and I'm going to make it. So, a good attitude will help you as well. Let's see. The ability to shape their lives to fit their needs. So, again, she's still like a grade 2 at the home, where she can get herself to her meals. She can get herself washed. She has a tub chair. She can turn on the shower and all that stuff. So, as far as personal care needs, she can pretty much do that for herself. Now, if she had to walk more than 20 feet, that's not going to happen without her falling in the floor. If she had to remember facts and figures on a day, that's not going to happen. She can't do it. So if you want to keep control, of your life and make it be what you need it to be, take control of the things that you can. Know your limitations, and do what you can and keep doing what you can. And that's the way that you'll continue to do what you can. Excuse me. Like I said, my father, another relative said, he's not coming home. He's never coming home again. He's going to be at home for the rest of his life. Well, she got fooled because he wasn't. He did what he was supposed to do. He did his rehab. He came home and kept walking and stuff like that and got better. So, sometimes people will count you down before you actually are. So, don't do that to people. And optimize their development. You're always learning and developing as a person. You are. If you let yourself. Hopefully you let yourself. Because, then you'll be a good, well-rounded person. And if you don't, really you're only hurting you and the immediate circle around you because they have to put up with you. But, you should be growing and developing as a person, always. You're never too old to learn something new. Now, it might take you a long time, like I say about my studying Spanish. It's been, 8 years or more, and, I could have a very rudimentary conversation with someone in Spanish, but not, like, a full fast one. Like, we got these people we know that work at our local store, and we talk to them. And I kind of adopted the little dude. I call him Mi Hermano because he kind of reminds me of my real brother. He's kind of a short guy. He's got a blonde, flat top thing happening in glasses. And so, we'll talk to them and stuff. But I don't have enough, fluency to where if they really were talking pretty fast to me, I could keep up with them. I'm like, no. So you can learn new things, but it takes you a little longer sometimes. In one study, people reported greater feelings of control over their work. And that's if they continue to work. Like I said about that one older fella that he was just so feeble. Everybody was worried about him. We were scared he's going to hurt himself. And some people just continue to work. They don't want to not work. Your finances, if you can keep up. My dad goes on his, he's got it on his computer, and he goes on his finances every day and checks, make sure everything's okay, and what's coming out, what's going in, make sure everything's right. If you can do that, you should do that, and marriage, as they aged, marriage is something that sometimes you have to work at, and it's like me and my husband have learned now, I was actually talking with my dad about this just a while ago. When you try to control the other person, that's not going to be a happy marriage. When you're, using force on the other person, that's not going to be a happy marriage. When only one person is getting their needs met in the marriage, that's not going to be a happy marriage. Me and my husband, we had to learn that. Like I say, we didn't have the best marriage guidance from the ones we saw growing up, so we had to learn that, and what we know now is I do my thing, he does his thing, and we meet in the middle, and that's how it should be. You should have your own life, you should have your life, they should have their life, and you should meet in the middle, and then you have things to talk about, and you're happy, and that's how it's supposed to be. If someone's trying to be over the other person, then the other person's not going to be happy, and that's how marriages end, because it shouldn't be like that. There should be a balance of power, whether you got more money or they got more money or whatever. You're supposed to have your own lives. And it's like I told one of my first coaching clients, another person can't be your life. They can be a part of your life, but they shouldn't be your life. Because if they are your life, you're giving them too much power over your life. So, if the marriage situation is not that great as you start getting into old age, maybe now's the time. Go some couples counseling, get that figured out, and have a happier time with your spouse, because your spouse should be your best friend. Mine started out that way, and then the world started changing them, and I'm like, really? But now he's ended up being that way again, because he's learned that, that's not the way you have a happy relationship with another person. So, but less control over their sex lives, and that one surprised me. Because it's like, no, you're older now, you should have a better one, because now you don't have to worry about getting pregnant. You can do it basically whenever you want. If you're home alone, y'all can just anytime you want. But so that one surprised me. It's like maybe they mean with dysfunctional problems. You hear them commercials all the time on the radio for high tire men's clinic and all these other things, and I wonder if that's what they mean. I don't know, because I don't see that as a problem. And relationships with children. I mean, again, I don't feel like that's a problem if you let them be adults. I've seen families where, the mother's in her 90s and still talking to her 70 and 60-year-old children as if they are children, like they're 5 years old. And it's like, yeah, you want them to respect you, but you don't respect them. You still treat them like they're a child, and then you wonder why they don't respect you and want to be around you. Hello. Doesn't work that way. So, again, I think you can have great relationships with your kids if you allow them to be who they are, But if you're still trying to hold on to them like this, like, I have to be the boss of them because they're my children, then you're not going to, because at some point they're just not going to want to deal with that, and they're going to walk away. And they're well within their right to do that if you're, acting that way, because nobody wants to put up with that forever in their entire life. Nobody wants to deal with that. Another study found that people tend to live longer if they have a sense of control over the role, such as a spouse, a parent, a provider, a friend, that is most important to them. So whatever is most important to you, you need to have a sense of control over. For me, it was like when I work, when I do things. To me, that's important to get it done, because there were situations in the past where, what I wanted to do with my life was not seen as important. What was seen as important is housework. And then I did that to the point where, I ended up with a bad back, bad hip, knee worse than it was to begin with, bad feet. And it's like, I'm not going to be a slave anymore. And if that's what you want, go move to a country where they allow that. But as for me, not happening anymore. And that's what you need from another person. You got to find another person. So, All definitions of successful or optimal aging are value-laden, unavoidably so. Because, again, it's what you value. It's what's important to you. Everybody's is going to be unique. Everybody's is going to be different. So, there's not a one-size-fits-all thing. But those are some, things to consider in successful or optimal aging. And I hope that's, helped you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. So that's where I'm going to leave you for today. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. Thanks for watching or listening. That's all for now. Until next time.